need a high-end designer or a lot of money to get a luxe look. Be your own interior designer.
This is Affordable Interior Design, the podcast.
Here's your host, Betsy Helmuth.
So Illana's writing from White Plains, and she just bought a house, and she's writing, "Hi, Betsy. We miss having you design our house, so we've been listening to your podcast for our fill of Betsy advice until you are back to seeing clients. Here's our question. When you paint the ceiling the same color as the walls in the room, when do you paint the ceiling the same colors in the wall in the room, and when do you paint it white? Our new house has 2 of the bedrooms on the 3rd floor, attic type space with 6.5-foot ceilings, and we obviously want to make the rooms look as open and large as possible given this restriction. Our family room off of the kitchen, on the other hand, has very high ceilings. We've heard painting the entire ceiling the same color as the walls in low ceiling rooms makes the room look bigger. But then I also heard you paint high ceilings the same as the walls to make it more cohesive. Which is it? Pictures of both our 3rd floor bedrooms and our family room are attached. Thanks." Well, guys, so just a little background on Illana. When I was in Dobbs Ferry, they also lived in Dobbs Ferry, and they have the most adorable family, Illana and her husband, and their family would go on walks together, and they have a very large brood with varying age ranges, and I had a shop right on Main Street. And I always looked so forward to them going on their family walks because they would step up and wave in the window, and it was such a nice moment. And I loved designing their previous space, and so now for their new house, it's very exciting. But I'm already phasing out of clients because I'm on maternity leave. Well, I'm not on maternity leave. Give me one more month. But I'm not currently taking clients because if they want more work, if they have follow-up questions, I would not be available. So they need to work with somebody who will be available for them, because hopefully I'll take 3 months, but I'm even more optimistic that I'll be able to take 6 months. Let's see how it all plays out. I have an amazing new office manager. Our team is great, so I'm quite optimistic. Let's get to your questions, shall we, Illana? Okay, so first of all, if you want to see her pictures, you'll want to head over to our YouTube channel, which is Affordable Interior Design on YouTube. And I'm checking out these pictures. First of all, the new place looks adorable, filled with character and personality. Second of all, here's the thing. So you have peaked kind of sides of the room that then go up to a ceiling. In my opinion, unless it's like a very tight entryway or a very small powder room, I would not paint the ceilings the same as the walls. Or if you had wallpaper, I would not wallpaper the ceilings the same as the walls unless it's a very small space. In this case, the ceilings are low at 6.5 feet. And typically when I do have those sloped sides in a room, I will paint the sloped sides if there is a clean line of demarcation before it goes straight. So for instance, my old house in Westchester had this same exact situation. And there was a clear demarcation, even with like a picture rail, of where the slope ended and the ceiling began. And the ceiling turned out to be a very narrow rectangular strip. But the previous owners had not painted the slopes, and it actually made the room look much smaller. What I cannot discern from these particular pictures is if there is a clear demarcation between where the slope ends and the ceiling begins, so that the paint would be a very clean application. Even if there's not a clear demarcation here, it also appears that there's not a clear demarcation of where the slope begins on the wall below. So you're going to have to make something up. That's the bottom line. Now, here you have such a narrow rectangle of potential ceiling. I mean, maybe it's 4.5 to 5 feet wide. Maybe this is a case where I might do the entire room in the color without the demarcation. Now, of course, I'm not referring to the trim or the doors, which you are going to keep that white color, right? Most trim people paint a version of white or off-white. But yeah, in this room with the small, low ceilings And the non-demarcated slope, maybe I would do it all one color, but it's not typically something I ever go for. And I don't believe any of those tricks. Like people would say, if you paint a small room a dark color, it'll feel small. If you paint a big room a light color, it'll feel bigger. I mean, all of those are really contingent on other variables as well. So I don't think there's one one rule in terms of those things that you could follow every time to get the desired effect. Now let's look at your large family room. This is very exciting. This place looks great, by the way. So here, the two slopes meet in a peak. There is no rectangular plateau at the top. They meet in a rather pointed triangle. In here, I'm just thinking. You know, we're going to have a lot of white in here because this family room opens up into the kitchen with the white trim, etc. Now, we definitely want the ceiling of the kitchen to be white. Definitely. But as the kitchen opens up into the family room, it peaks and has that triangular shape that I was referring to earlier. If this were my house, I would keep the entire rectangular shape, the two peaks, which are very clearly demarcated in this room, the white color of the ceiling in the kitchen, because there's recessed lights in the ceiling in the kitchen and there's also recessed lights in these peaks. And so you're kind of treating the same type of ceiling the same type of way. And then I would paint the actual walls, the color, the room color that you're going for. So there we go. I think I answered all your questions, Illana. Of course, if more come up, feel free to ask me because this is the only way you can get my design advice until January or maybe even March. Wouldn't it be delicious to take 6 months? Oh, with my other babies, I hardly got 1 or 2 months. So I don't know. It would just be so delicious, so decadent. A big thank you to Aton and the Embassy who wrote our theme song. A shout out to Catherine Heller who owns the podcast shop and is our editor extraordinaire. We also want to thank Ginny Sunasan and her team at the Savvy Podcast Agency for their help with our social, our YouTube channel, and so much more. We also want to thank Uploft, which is our parent company who supports this podcast. And lastly, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and for all your support.